What is up, everybody? How we doing? John Middlekauff just watched a little Thursday night football, but we just got breaking news. Let's dive into it right now. Well, when I was watching the Thursday night game, I think it's fair to say that I envisioned the biggest story of the night being the Yankees being down 0-2, because that Thursday night game was pretty bad. I mean, didn't feel that relevant in terms of the playoffs or anything. And then with about 3 minutes left, I got a text from my producer, James, that broke some news that said, wow, McCaffrey to the Niners. So, like any normal human, immediately get on Twitter, Adam Schefter, stunned. Honestly, you're not stunned that often, little stunned. Even though there was internet buzz of McCaffrey to the 49ers, my overall thought was the Niners were just trying to drive up the price to get the Rams to do something similar like last year. Trade for Von, when they traded a second and third for Von Miller, trade a second and third, and then basically have back-to-back years with no draft picks. Within a year or two, they would basically crumble, trying to destroy what they have going. And then when it was actually the 49ers that traded for him, and then I found out the compensation was they traded a second, a third, a fourth, and next year's fifth, I was stunned. I am still absolutely, just got the news, pretty recently. I'm shocked. Not because the 49ers made a trade. They're going to be aggressive. They have been aggressive. They need to be aggressive given that they are competing against Tampa, Green Bay, who I know is kind of falling off, the Eagles and Howie Roseman, who are doubling down all the time, and obviously the Rams, who at any moment could trade for any single player. But to me, what stuns me the most about this is when you give up that many picks, you're putting your chips all in the middle of the table. And in a weird way, their chips, like Trey Lance got hurt, so they're playing with a backup quarterback, which is bizarre because he's not really a backup quarterback because he's been their starting quarterback. But I think this is pretty reckless, to be honest with you. A second, a third, and a fourth. Now, they're a running team. They love running backs. But here's the problem. Their running backs always get hurt. Kyle Shanahan's running backs, his whole team does, but his running backs specifically always get hurt. And then you look at Christian McCaffrey. He's always hurt. Now, do I believe that Kyle Shanahan and this team, when healthy, are really good? Hell yes. Do I believe Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, is really good? Hell yes. The problem is Niners are never healthy. Christian McCaffrey's never healthy. Don't really love the mix. And when you trade a second, a third, and a fourth round pick in next year's draft, here's the kicker. You don't have a first round pick either because of the Trey Lance trade. Now, I also am a huge proponent of being aggressive, doubling down, swinging for the fences, but doing it smartly. And to trade for a guy who's often injured, I just think this is borderline crazy. Now, the 49ers have been productive with Jeff Wilson as their running back. Now, McCaffrey is more than a running back. He's a really good pass-catching back, and he basically could play slot receiver. But you already have kind of slot receivers. I mean, Deebo Samuel is not your typical down-the-field threat. He catches most of his action behind the line of scrimmage. He's also, can turn into a running back at any moment. George Kittle, in the passing game, lines up in the slot a lot. Juwan Jennings is a really good slot receiver. Now, if it's because of your running back depth, I just don't like trading that much for a running back. Ultimately, when the Rams, I thought that trade was nuts. And then we found out the Broncos ate the money. So basically, they just traded a second and a third for Von Miller. Von Miller he's an edge rusher. And the guy that we saw toward the end of the season in the playoffs was getting sacks every game. I see it borderline impossible for Christian McCaffrey to equal that type value when you make a trade. Remember just a couple years ago, the Patriots traded a second and a third for Mohamed Sanu, and it backfired. I just think anytime that you get that aggressive with a trade, it's really pretty risky. Now, this puts a lot of pressure on Kyle. Kyle already had a lot of pressure on him, just given the roster, given the talent, given how wide open the NFC is. Now, from just a fan's perspective, it's fun. It's cool. It's going to be enjoyable. But I watch the Niners more closely than any team in the league, and the injury factor is just insane. All their guys always get hurt, and now you acquire an injured player. I just have a hard time seeing the guy stay healthy. If I just take the emotion out of it and you just look at it, one guy always gets hurt. One team always gets guys hurt. Kyle, the way in which he asks the 49ers go-to play is a pitch toss between the tackles. Another play that they run a lot is basically an outside zone pitch. They hit it at 90 miles an hour. It becomes a car crash. All of their running backs the last several years have all been injured. Their starting running back right now is literally injured. Their backup running back, actually technically is their third string guy, Ty Davis-Price, who they drafted in the third round. He got hurt. He's coming back. Jeff Wilson Jr., who has been injured before, somehow is healthy right now, but he could go down at any moment. Maybe that's the way Kyle's looking at it. We might as well just trade for the best running back because all of our running backs are eventually going to get injured. I just think trading for an often injured guy, giving up that much. If you had told me, hey, they gave a third-round pick, whatever. But a second, third, and a fourth, when you don't have a first, basically your whole fucking draft. Pretty crazy. I wouldn't totally call it reckless just because their team is equipped to be successful. This week, they're getting Trent Williams back. They're getting Nick Bosa back. But holy moly, that's just one of those wow moments, which makes sports fun. And then really quick on the game tonight, one thing I think it shows you is like certain organizations and certain businesses are built to last, and others just, even if they become successful, there's an element of luck there. Like ultimately, Tim Cook took over for Apple, and it hasn't mattered. Apple's crushed, right? But when you look at the Saints, they were a disaster before Sean Payton and Drew Brees showed up. They were called the Aints. They lost a lot. And then now Sean Payton and Drew Brees are gone. They're losing again. So maybe when you take a step back and you go, yeah, the Saints actually are just a bad organization that just got a decade and a half of a Hall of Fame level coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback. Change the organization. You remove one of them, you can still compete. Last year they had Sean Payton. They went 9-8 with a bunch of different quarterbacks, and it was really impressive. They were basically a 49er interception away from being in the playoffs. This year, you remove Sean Payton as well. Obviously, now 2 years removed from Drew Brees. You get this, 2-5. And here's the worst part about being 2-5. They do not have their first-round pick because the Eagles, who are currently 6-0, made a trade with them during the draft. And this is also why when you're going through organizational changes as big as the Saints were going through, obviously Brees left, but then when Sean Payton leaves, wouldn't have been smart. And I don't think this is playing Monday morning quarterback or just doing your classic, like it's easy to say after the fact. No, just take a deep breath, make your draft pick. Don't make any crazy trades. They traded a future one to get 3 first-round picks last year, acting like they were a player or two away. How does that make any sense? I don't buy that. I never quite understood the logic on that. Even at the time when they made it, assuming they could be competitive at 8 wins, I didn't think it made sense. But now, they're headed toward what? 4 wins? Dennis Allen is not good, and their quarterback situation is a disaster. A disaster. Like it's a major, major problem. So the Saints are a great example of bad organizations can be masked by really talented people. Sean Payton, Drew Brees, you take them out of the equation, you get a team, destined to, I don't know, draft in the top 5. You can keep telling me they got a lot of talent, but they just keep losing every single week. So Howie Roseman, another great move.